Unsyndicated presents Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian.
What is going on? So glad you could join us on a Friday morning. It is a pleasure to see two familiar faces, two friendly faces, heck, two friends with me right now. Of course, Matt Shepard, as always. And we are very pleased to be joined by a guy that had such an integral part, not only at WDFN, but he had a very unique position on the other side of the fence, because when WDFN finally went under, certainly Terry Foster had a front row seat at that, at the competitor as well. Let's welcome him in, the one, the only, T. Foss. What is up, Terry?
Just everything. I'm just kind of chilling out, waiting for my next move. That's ever going to happen. So we'll see.
How do you feel?
I feel great. I'm trying to think. Everything is good. Trying to keep my weight at a manageable level. I gained a few pounds during COVID because my wife wouldn't let me go to the gym. Now I'm in the gym and I'm in this class that just kicks my ass and it's really good for me. Called Body Pump, if you guys want to take it.
Body pumping? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good for you.
Terry, that's the thing. I think so many people, first and foremost, is a human being. I mean, people know your backstory. You talk about what you want to talk about, but you had a very serious health scare a few years back. And the important thing is you look good. It's great to see you. I've seen you multiple times at Woodward Sports and you're feeling good. Is that the best way to put it?
Yeah. Solid. Wonderful. I mean, I got old man stuff like, if I sit on the floor, it takes me an hour to get up. But other than that, I'm great.
Well, we're all in trouble in regards to that.
Right.
Well, we've all worked together a little bit at Woodward Sports, and it's great that Terry stays active in that regard and working Lions. And I know he was writing some freelance articles for a while as well, but this is a lot about your integral part of being part of the WDFN family. What did you enjoy most about working there for so long?
I think the thing I enjoyed most was just hanging out with people, like-minded people. They were fun people to work with. Sometimes you're sitting around the bullpen, preparing for your show, and then there's like 9, 10, 12, 15 people around there, and you're just kind of horsing around, having a good time. So I enjoyed that the most, because when you're a writer, like I was with the Detroit News, a lot of times you're isolated. You go to games, so a lot of times you're in your office and you don't go into the newspaper office and you're writing and you're by yourself and stuff. But DFN, there was always somebody there and there was always shenanigans. So I love the shenanigans.
I want to go back to the early days, Terry, because I think the word shenanigans goes hand in hand, in particular with the garage. And I say this all the time for people out there. They hear the garage and they chuckle. And then I go, no, I don't think you understand. It was a garage.
Yes.
That bullpen, you and I could sit there and talk for a half hour straight on some of the shenanigans in that bullpen, especially on the weekend. But it was just a special place, Terry. I mean, I think back, I cannot believe that we were ever in that garage.
Yeah, I know. And people described it as kind of a fraternity, and it was, or, Animal House, and it was. And by the way, I went by the garage a few weeks ago, and the garage kind of looks like this. I don't know what's keeping that thing up, but yeah, it was a broken down old garage. I mean, there used to be cars hoisted on, I don't know what those things are called, but the hoist. I mean, literally, it was that. People just think, well, we called it garage. It was a garage. That's where we did our radio. But it was fun.
Foster. It was a blast. I had a blast down there. Terry, I think people, are interested in how you eventually ended up at WDFN. I don't need to remind everybody, but I will. I think you were an accomplished writer. Certainly, you had such a connection for so many people to the Bad Boys era. Do you remember exactly when that call came and when you started doing shifts at WDFN?
Don't know exactly, but it didn't happen right away. I did not get the call like some of the earlier people. They thought I was too quiet but I didn't know I was interviewing for a job. But eventually they wanted someone who was in the dressing room and knew the players and could give a different perspective from a writer. So that's how I got the job. And then I kind of bounced around, but I ended up doing the Sports Doctor show with Art Regner. And that was a blast too, because Art, you never knew what was going to happen every day. Sometimes he want to do a serious show, and sometimes he want to do a show on your jock strap or something. You just never knew. And the thing that was frustrating for me doing a show with Art, I like to prepare. I like to sit down, have everything there written down, and I'm kind of like that. And so Art and I would talk. And he says, "Hey, Dr. Foster, let's meet 2 hours before the show. Let's go grab dinner, and then we'll prepare the show." So I would get there 2 hours beforehand, no Art. And then I said, "Well, shoot." He said, "Let's go to dinner." So I would go to our dinner spot, no Art. Prepare the show, no Art. And then I would go back to the studio maybe 10 minutes before then, no Art. And then just as the lights were coming on, here comes Art with a big stack of papers. And he says, "Are you ready for this?" I said, "Yeah, I guess so." And he would just go and we would do our show. And it was just like off the cuff. So it didn't matter if you prepared, because Art was going to take you in a different direction. And it was usually fun.
What was the feedback you got from the Detroit News while you were writing? I mean, that can be a challenging balance. You had great opinions for sure, and respected ones, but sometimes there is a line that you have to walk if you're trying to serve two different companies like that. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I really didn't catch junk about the Detroit News until I went to 97.1, because then there was a big conflict. But the Detroit News, it was, we are the top priority. So if there's a game you have to go to, you can't do your show. It's a press conference, you can't do your show. So that was understood, and I understood that too. But when I went to 97.1, Mike and I's show got so big that 97.1 was like, "Well, we want you here," and then the news is like, "We want you here." So that was the tough balancing act. So I really didn't feel that pressure at DFN, because DFN was like, "If you show up, we're good. If you don't, oh well, we'll see you next time."
Well, Terry Foster kindly joining us here on Shep and Sean. I still can't believe it's been 30 years since WDFN started operations. Terry, you mentioned the Sports Doctors, and I said the same thing when we chatted to Art. That was one of those shows that just seemed to grab people, that people still talk about that show, the Sports Doctors. And, he said he gave you credit. You guys were talking about, what we can do. And you came up with the idea of the Sports Doctors. Did you have any idea that it would become what it became? And I mean, here we are still talking about it, 26, 27 years later.
No, I guess I didn't, because I didn't really know Art until we started doing the show. And then I didn't know how the main thing is, what is your chemistry going to be like? Everybody has sports opinions. Everybody has opinions on things. Everybody can talk English, we think, but do you have chemistry with that person? If you don't, it's going to flop. If you do, you got a chance. So Art and I, we discovered pretty quickly that we had chemistry, that we both, grew up in Metro Detroit. We had our different experiences, and we kind of molded them together, and it kind of worked. And he has a lot of energy. I'm not as energetic as him, so it was kind of a perfect marriage there, and it worked. And Art and I even talked about, because I was so frustrated with him showing up late for shows, we had talked about renting an apartment where we would show up now and then I could grab Art and say, "Hey, we're here, so let's start going at it." But that never happened.
It's interesting how you go from the written word to the spoken word. You go from writing to broadcasting. They are different mediums. So there had to be a little bit of a learning curve for you in that regard. How long did it take before you truly felt comfortable where you're like, you know what, I can almost drive the show? There's, in case people don't know, when you're in radio, there's a driver and there's, the co-host. You could almost drive as well as be the co-host. So how long did that take before you felt that comfortability, T?
I thought it took a couple years for me because I didn't understand driving. I didn't understand how important it is to get in and out of breaks. So, and I was just kind of talking, and then somebody would be looking at their hands. T, you're like 2 minutes over. I'm like, oh, okay, bye. So I didn't get that at first, but then, it took a couple years of how important that was and getting in and out and teasing, what you're going to talk about next. We don't tease in newspapers, so it was definitely different. But let me tell you a little story. When I was a newspaper guy, I was a little bit of a newspaper snob. I did not like radio guys because the thing that used to get me mad was when I was covering the Pistons, I would ask like 10 straight questions, and it would be some 400-pound radio guy with his microphone in front of Isaiah Thomas or something. He wouldn't say a damn thing. So I'm answering all these questions. I listened to the radio the next morning, and Bob would be up there and say, oh, we got a good report from the Pistons locker room from Bob. And then there would be a bunch of Isaiah Thomas quotes. And then they said, man, Bob did a hell of a job. I said, Bob didn't do anything. Bob just stood there. So I'm like, I don't like radio dudes. And then I became one. I guess I don't like myself.
Terry,
do you consider yourself a radio or a writer? Radio
I always
personality.
consider myself a writer, but I was doing both. I mean, the funny thing is, and I always told this to students, the newspapers started doing like little podcasts. And I said, the funny thing is the newspaper wants me to talk, and now the radio wants me to write. So I'm all confused. I don't know what I am now. So, so our mediums have kind of meshed a little bit.
Terry Foster kindly joining us, looking back at the history of WDFN. We'll get back to it in just a second. Let me tell you all about catering, though. This is a company I'm very familiar with because they've done things for me. They can do things for you and great things as well. Graduations, weddings, bridal showers, corporate events, anything you need catering for, from 25 to 4,000 people. All About Catering will take care of you. Customer service and satisfaction is their number one goal. Do not sweat your next big event. They got you. Just go to allaboutcateringllc.com today. Check out the menus, all the 5-star reviews. There's one for me on there, as a matter of fact. Give them a call at 586-731-1398. That's 586-731-1398 to get your event started. Really appreciate them being a part of it. Really appreciate Matt Shepard and Terry Foster here today. Terry, you and I have talked about this many times over the years, and Art made reference to it last week. Art decides that it's time for him to leave the fan. I think it's 8 years. The sports doctors are no more. There's going to be a new show coming. You and I both thought for a period of time that we were going to be partnered. And then at the last minute, something happened. I still don't know the answer, but I'll let you pick up the story from there.
Well, I was told, because I never met management with you. It was always separate from you. So I was told, I sat down, I said, hey, Art's probably going to leave. We want to continue having you on DFN. So we're going to pair you up with Sean Baligian. So I was like, cool. So I get, I start writing down little stuff. What would a show look like with me and Sean? So I'm preparing. And then I don't know what day of the week it is, but I think we're supposed to start on a Monday. Well, Monday comes, I'm going down, starting my show with Sean. And then that morning of the phone call, it's like, that's not happening. I'm like, why not? I never got an explanation, but it's just, that was dead. And they paired me with Eric Pate, who we just it was a bad chemistry. So it just didn't work out. And I wanted to get out because I wasn't, if I'm not having fun, I'm not doing radio. Yeah. So I wasn't having fun, so I quit. That was it.
When did you notice that though? You said you were pretty obvious you had good chemistry with Art right away. When were you able to recognize that it wasn't great chemistry with Eric for whatever reason?
I think after 2 shows, because Eric was always pissed off about something, and so I'm saying, you know, what do we have to be upset about? Sorry about that. This is my spam calls. This is one of my 30 spam calls I get every day. Let me turn off the ringer if I can. But he was always ticked off, and it just made it miserable. And I'm like, dude, we're supposed to be enjoying ourselves. So it's
funny. I want to pick it up. This Shep, I was convinced on a Sunday afternoon. I was sitting at home. Terry, if I'm not mistaken, we had just been over your house. I think we were watching the NFC Championship game that year, if memory serves me correct. And you and I had been talking about doing a show, and I was sitting at home, and then all of a sudden, I got a phone call from somebody and said, "Okay, you're not on tomorrow." And I said, "Well, Terry and I thought we were doing a show." No, that's not going to happen. Okay. I mean, really, that's what it was. I never got an explanation for it. It was just one of those things. Shep, how many times have we been there in the business where something like that happens? It was quizzical. I didn't get it. Because like you, I was told that this was going to happen. And then I was told, no, we didn't officially agree on it. So, no, we decided to go in a different direction. And I'm not.
Well, I don't think it happens very often. I really don't. Yeah. I mean, I think that's unprofessional. I don't know how you can tell 2 talents that you're going to be working together, allow them a weekend, it sounds like, to prepare for something and then pull the plug without any explanation. They want to pull the plug. That's their prerogative, but you deserve an explanation. For you to go that long and not getting one, I think is quite honestly unprofessional. That place was so great, DFN, in so many different ways, but there were times where it was less than ideal. There was some toxicity there. When did you decide that you wanted to get out, and why, and how much of that toxic environment at times caused you to change your mind and decide, you know what, I'm going to move on from here?
I had a toxic show, so I wanted out. And by then I was had a family, and it just, I'd rather be with my kids or the wife than being in a toxic relationship. So that's why I left. It was not fun for me, and I'm like, we'll see you later. It was pretty. But Shep, let me disagree with you. That does happen way too often in our business. And here's the explanation you get: moving in a different direction. That's it. That's all you get. That's the only explanation you get. Yeah, we decided to move in a different direction.
Yeah.
I remember
I've heard it not too long ago too. That's it's challenging. Yep.
I remember I did hear Terry, and you and I talked about this. Well, we never fully agreed on it or something. And you just, after scratching your head for a second, and I'm not going to lie to you, I was devastated. I was so looking forward to it. You just go, all right, it's on to the next thing. Terry, I say this all the time to people out there that think that 2 sports stations can't compete in this market. I say this all the time. I firmly believe that 2 sports stations can compete in this market. And I use our shows once you moved over to, at the time, 1270 as an example. When you and Mike were paired together, obviously a legendary show. I mean, I don't care who you are. You have to give credit to where credit is due. And our battle in middays, which I always thought was fun. I didn't know Mike really well. I still don't, I guess. But I knew you. We both did very well in the midday. So when people say, can 2 sports stations coexist in this market? I say beyond a shadow of a doubt, yes. And I point to that 3 years that, your show, the Sports Inferno, and my show went head to head, and both of us had really good ratings.
Right. It can be done, but can you get two companies that want to compete?
Mm-hmm.
That's the big question right there. Or does someone say, okay, well, we lost this much money this month, we're out. Boom. That's the key right there. So yeah, I mean, you got the audience, you've got the talent here in Detroit to do it, but do you have the people with the shirt and ties that want to compete? That's the key right there, because 97.1 had the money, they had the corporate backing, they had the shirts and ties, they had the backing. So once that was established and 97.1 wasn't going anywhere, WDFN was in trouble, because I don't think the shirts and ties over there really wanted to battle with 97.1. They just saw it as this huge monster, and the monster stomped them.
Yeah, you're 100% right there, because it's an expensive format to carry, without question. When you left and you moved to the FM dial, AM started, then FM, what was the biggest difference that you noticed in the two cultures?
Well, WDFN was really noisy. Every day you had people talking, laughing, and throwing things at each other, throwing spitballs at each other, putting them in little straws. And then 97 or 1270 is really quiet, because the people from WWJ were there, and they were very professional, and they went on the air wearing shirt and ties. And we come in and wearing our Soupy Sales t-shirts from back in the day. So that was the huge difference there. And also, we had like 2 or 3 stations in one building with our advertising crew and everything, and you had to be kind of quiet and nice, and which was tough for me and Mike, because me and Mike, our show prep is really loud, and because we get into it, we almost had our shows before the shows, so we had to tone that down a little bit because we were too loud, and we had to respect everything. And the other thing, at 1270, we had consultants. We had people who were not from Detroit telling us how to do our show. And after like 3 or 4 meetings, I just turned to Mike and said, dude, they don't know what they're talking about. We just have to do our thing. And plus, they didn't want to put me and Mike together. They thought we were bad pairing. I guess I hear this too much. I was too quiet, and so they said, finally, Mike is a real stubborn guy. He was the one that pushed, I want to do the show with Terry. And so they said, okay, so they threw their hands up and said, okay, fine, do it. Then we were told, and talking about being unprofessional, this show will last 6 months. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, cool. And it was the longest 6 months of my life.
No doubt about that, man. And a very successful 6 months plus of your life as well. It's an interesting road that you've taken. There's no doubt about that. When you go over there, you seem to fit in, obviously. Was anything missing that you thought you brought to that place that perhaps they didn't have before you got there? And if so, what was it?
I think I lost Terry's audio. Todd, do you have Terry's audio? Matt, can you hear Terry?
I cannot. No.
Okay. Yeah, I think we lost Terry's audio. We'll try to catch back up with Terry in just a second. Perhaps
he does bring up an interesting point, though, don't you think, Sean? When you have consultants who aren't from here, we used to say this all the time at DFN. I mean, Terry at times would lead the charge. He would say national radio in Detroit does not work. Mm-hmm. And he, at one time, I think he and I were having a conversation about it. He said it's actually expands. He would say Michigan. In Detroit, national radio doesn't work. Detroit is different than other markets. I think we got him back now. Just a dude, Terry Foster. Let's see if we can hear him now. Can you just reiterate that before you get into what you and I were just talking about a minute ago? I still don't hear him. Detroit is different. It's a different market than most. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, we lost Terry's audio, huh? Todd, perhaps if you can figure that out, we can hopefully get Terry's audio back, and we can figure that out. Shep, I had a conversation with a guy not only in Detroit, but when I went over to the ill-fated 1051, exactly about what you said. When you have people that are not from this town trying to tell me that Mike and Mike are going to work in the morning, for an example, I just shook my head. And it was easy over there because I could use Howard Stern as an example. Howard Stern went and conquered so many different markets, right? So many different markets. Howard Stern couldn't conquer this market. Detroiters want Detroit. I firmly believe that. I'm a firm believer. They want Detroit. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be from here, okay?
No.
Because obviously there are guys that came from, whether it be Mike, either one of the Mikes, Mike Stone or Mike Valeni, that can have a tremendous amount of success. But you have to be talking about Detroit. And it is amazing to me that so many of these people don't. This is a Detroit-centric town. It just is. And we love our own. And it is amazing to me how many conversations I had with some of these smart people, these quote unquote smart people who got paid a heck of a lot of money to make these decisions, that they didn't get that. They just didn't get that. Never made sense.
That. It makes a ton of sense. And I think you're 100% right there. One of the greater influences on my radio career was Joe Donovan. Donovan and Don Patrick, when I first started at WWJ, both were working over there, and they are phenomenal broadcasters, just the ultimate pros. Never met anyone as good as Joe Donovan at ad-libbing and doing what he does better than anybody, reaching the clock, hitting the time. He was the man. He used to tell me, we've got consultants in here, young fella. Consultants who are ready to talk about you and me and whether or not we're doing our job. What's the first word, the first three letters in a consultant? And I said, it's con. And he's like, you got that right, brother. You got that right. They're con man. They're just getting a paycheck. Yeah. And he's 100% right. You bring consultants into Detroit who are outside of Detroit, don't know about Detroit sports and the passion that people have for it, and they think they're going to use it like a rubber stamp with other markets in this country, and it just doesn't work. Like you said, the surprising thing about that is not that they keep coming with the same idea, it's the fact that management keeps going to them for that idea.
100%. No, and it's, you know what, and if we're being honest, I think even the last probably year and a half before WDFN 1 went away, I think our management, whether we want to admit it or not, was chasing their tail. We knew, Shep, we can talk about it. We knew. And I mean, there were so many things that happened. I remember somebody in upper management, couple people, were saying, do you have any interest in doing the afternoon show? And this is after some of the changes were made. You were involved in the Jamie and Brady show. Unfortunately, they were both let go. Jamie came back in a certain regard for a little while, but to me, it was almost grasping at straws when you were having these conversations. While on one hand, I was honored when they approached me to do the afternoon show. Of course, it's the afternoons at the Fan. On the other hand, I remember thinking to myself, unless you seriously decide that you're going to make a charge, and it was all about moving to 106.7, 97.1 was going to continue to pound us. That was just, we could move the pieces around. You could move Stoney and Wojo out. You could put Shep in the morning. You could put me in the afternoon. We were going to continue to get pounded until they decided to get serious. And Shep, I don't know when it hit you. They were just never going to get serious. I think you knew that.
Yeah, I knew it pretty much right away. I mean, you brought a butter knife to a gunfight, and Terry's back with us. I hope we can hear him now. For us, that was frustrating, Terry. I don't know if it frustrated you as much that you knew what the station had to do to stay afloat, and you couldn't make the people making the decision do it, even though it would have been the right decision. Is that a fair assessment?
All right, having some technical difficulties. We'll try to catch up with Terry. We'll try to figure that out. Yes, unfortunately, Sometimes Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi routers can do that. No, Shep, I think frustrating is the word. And
they didn't have guts, Sean. And I get it's a
100%.
risk. There's a lot of risks in business and a lot of risks in radio. Okay. It's risky to go and try and sign a contract with a professional sports team or a college athletic team and carry their games. All right. There's risk involved there. I don't think our management, even though we got along with them, had the guts to do what they were supposed to do. If they were smart and gutsy, maybe they were one, not the other. I don't know. But if they were smart and gutsy, they would have done what they should have done a long time ago. And what killed me is there was still a small window of opportunity. You know how we always talk about teams having a window, right? We think the Lions window is right now. Well, if they still had a small window of opportunity, recognizing what could have been accomplished, and they still didn't do it. That tells me why they didn't have the guts to do it. Or maybe the smarts or both.
I think that's what frustrates me the most about, and I here we are. Let's shoot straight. And Terry, I hope you're listening to this. I think that's what frustrates me the most about some of the revisionist history about WDFN. And I've told you privately, and I have no problem saying it here, I take offense to the notion. And I've heard prominent people from our radio station say this. I take offense to the notion that WDFN died in 2009 on inauguration.
Quite honestly, it's offensive. Yeah, it's offensive.
It is offensive. And you know what? I'm going to defend that offensive by speaking factually. Our shows did very well. Terry could tell you that the afternoon show, I have no problem saying this. I never talk about ratings, but offensive is a word. Our afternoon show that I did with Killer had better ratings than our previous afternoon show. I know I'm not supposed to say that. I know that I'm supposed to follow a narrative that, that show kept us afloat for so many years. And I was very offended when I heard a few people say that. Now, were we ever going to win? No, we were never going to win. We were never going to win. I knew no matter how much they tried to dangle the carrot in front of our face, and boy, did they ever. I knew that we were never going to move to 106.7. And I bet you the people at 97.1 knew. Shep, I don't know if you felt the same way. You and I don't know if we've ever had this conversation. I knew no matter how much they dangled the carrot, and they had a tendency to do it with the newer guys more than we older guys, it was never going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen.
I never thought they would do it either because I thought they missed their opportunity. I knew when many of us, you included, walked into Dave Pugh's office and pleaded, please, can we just give it a shot? The station that we want to go to has changed formats like Michigan changes seasons and it's not working. Why wouldn't you try it one more time? I truly believe it was a cost thing. I believe they felt, and I don't necessarily disagree with this, but they felt like you had to have some type of sports team to carry on an FM. My argument at the time was when you get the FM stick, then you are much more attractive to those teams or universities, and those require negotiations. They just didn't want to do it. Here's the other thing. They weren't sports people. It helps to have a sports person. They were music people. And there's a difference. There really is. Look, TV stations are usually general managed by either somebody from sales or somebody from production. Usually it's sales. If it's sales, they leave the production alone. If it's production, they rely heavily on their sales manager, right? Radio is generally run by music people, not by sports people. So it's really foreign to them. You and I both are friends with Red Berenson. He once told me, you don't find many hockey coaches getting fired. You know why? Because most athletic directors in this country focus on football and basketball. They don't know much about hockey. It's the same thing in radio. They don't know much about sports. They like to think they do. They're a fan, but they don't know the inner workings of what it takes to run a really good sports station. They were music people, and that's what they fell back on.
Yeah. All right. I think we have Terry audio. Terry, you there? No, Well, we'll try it again sometime. You know, Wi-Fi, things like that. No doubt about it. And that's why I wanted to give props to Terry. I mean, Terry had a very unique perspective, Shep. He was with us at the Fan, and then he got to go across the street, be a part of a wildly successful show, and kind of watch our demise. I always go back to that last year, Shep, of DFN, 08 and 09. And I'm serious when I say this. I have no problem saying this. I probably should have said it years ago, like a lot of people that we work with. I think that last year of DFN, we saw what a lot of people are made of. I really do. I think we saw what a lot of people are made of, and I don't care if I piss you off. I don't care. There were people that kept swinging to the end, and there were people that just put their hands up and went along for the ride and decided that they weren't going to try too hard. Shep, I think a lot of people, and I had a very wise man say, we saw what kind of rats there were when the ship started sinking. There were the rats that went to look for something else, and there were the rats that tried to cannibalize others. And Shep, to me, I think that last year that kind of exemplified what we were talking about. There were a lot of guys in that building, not everybody, a lot of guys that said, I'm going to keep swinging to the very end. And there were some guys that, let's just put it this way, I'd never jump in a foxhole with them ever again as long as I live and breathe on this planet.
Yeah, let's face it. I mean, there's some people who wanted to keep it afloat, not just keep their jobs, but keep the same atmosphere that we grew to love there. And there are others who wanted it to fail. I mean, it's almost like hosting a Lions show on Monday. I'm glad they lost because all I got to do is say the number and everybody can call in. This is something I said to management. I said, why do you think the other station is number one, but yet they have all our people there? Think about that for a second. They jumped to number one with certain talent who were on this station with even more talent that is currently on the station. What's the difference? The difference is signal. And they still didn't get it.
Yeah.
And it just was not a priority for them.
No.
And it's really too bad.
What really was frustrating. And I think part of it, Shep, is, you know, I remember the last year we had the update guy decided to come on my show and work specifically on my show. You know, that was whatever his choice was and everything. We were obviously doing well. And then, you know, when so many of them matriculated over there, it was like the race to get over there. And then unfortunately, they didn't know you anymore. They didn't know me anymore. Or, you know, in a lot of cases, oh, you don't want to hire that guy or you don't want to hire that guy. I mean, a lot of guys got cannibalistic. And, you know, I could sit here and tell a story, but I think a lot of people know that story. And, you know, in fairness, an apology was made. But yeah, I mean, when you get into a situation like that, you don't have a chance. You don't have a chance. And quite frankly, Shep, for me, I wished it could have worked. And that's why I went back that second time. The idea of you doing a show either in the morning or afternoon and doing a show with a guy that I was legitimately friends with and Tom Kowalski was very enticing to me, but you can only bang your head against the wall so many times.
Sure. Yeah. And you want, if you're going to do that, and look, I'm not going to lie to you. It took more than a second thought for me to go back a second time too, because you want proof that it's going to be different this time. You don't want to set yourself up for failure. You don't want to seem too desperate. You want to make sure that their philosophy is in line with your philosophy, and it just wasn't there, you know. And it's really too bad. And that's what it is. You don't want to sound like, you know, all you're doing is complaining about what they should have done. But folks, when we tell you this, and Terry can attribute to this, we did try to change it. We did try to keep it alive. And we did try to tell them what we thought would be best. Management doesn't always know best. It's just like parents don't always know best. You can learn from your kids. Well, management can learn from their workers too. They chose not to do that. That was the demise. The demise
believe
wasn't the talent. The demise was never the talent. The demise was the leadership in their front office and in the corner offices, period.
I believe we have Terry back. Terry, you with us? Oh, shucks. All right. Well, we'll try to figure out the audio issue. That's a strange one. If not, we'll catch up with Terry again. Hey, let me tell you about legacy.
That's a weird thing because I mean he was so clear right out of the gate, and now this.
I can't figure that. Let me tell you about Legacy very quickly. Did you know that thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy Partners to help with their home and auto insurance? Our friends at Legacy are one of Southeast Michigan's top independent insurance agents and provide a full-service, one-stop solution for all of your insurance needs, personal and business, large and small. Legacy has helped our listeners by fixing mistakes other agents have made, asking the right questions to get the right coverage put in place to properly protect you. And yeah, who's kidding who? It's about saving money. And that's what these guys do. They have saved many, many people out there money. Give them the chance to do that for you. Get your quote. Chances are, if you haven't checked your policies in the last year, you're paying too much. You could be underinsured. That's what Legacy is going to do for you. What are you waiting for? Give them a chance to help with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, business insurance needs. Give them a call today at 586-209-4106 or visit legacypartnersins.com to get started with your new quotes. Shep, you know who's back I want to get? I think there's another narrative out there that has really pissed me off over the years. And I've shut my mouth about a lot of things. I just, whatever. Sorry, life's too short. I have two kids that I adore. I've never got wrapped up in a lot of stuff, but you know who I want to stick up for? I want to stick up for our old program director, Rona Danziger, because I think a lot of people have laid blame on Rona's front porch for DFN shutting off the lights. I can tell you definitively, and I'm sure you'll back me up, I don't think there was anybody in that building that was banging the door harder for us to move to FM than Rona. And she was a great boss to work for. She, you know what she did? She let us be us. And I like, for me, I flourished under her. I have no problem saying it. I flourished under her. A lot of the things that I did, she really encouraged me and things like that. And I think over the years, that's one of the narratives that's really pissed me off. And I haven't talked to Rona in years. Rona, hi, I hope everything's well. But that's one of the narratives that really kind of pissed me off is, you know, Rona was somehow like narrow, but, you know, fiddling while Rome burned. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. We'd love to have her on because she'd be a great resource with a lot of stories, and I hope we can do that. I agree with you. I think she was a very steady, stable leader for the most part. It's challenging when you're dealing with this many different personalities and different egos. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Okay. It's okay to have an ego. Everybody has one. You've got one. I've got one. The other people. I think what she wanted desperately, and I'm glad you said it, because her, Henson, they helped create that special fraternity-like feel that station provided. I don't know if other stations have that. I've worked at other stations, but they're different formats. This station and this format, I think, almost required it. It's like a football huddle where we're all in there looking at each other. We've got an idea of whether or not the play is going to work. Somebody's got to call the play. And it was Henson. It was Rona Danziger. And they hired good people. I don't care who it was. I mean, Marty Martin was a fun-loving producer. Doug Todd was a good producer. They had a lot of people there. Now, it's unfortunate that a lot of them don't work in the market anymore. They don't work in the business. But that station had that type of special feel to it. Not just because people were close and fun and willing to argue with one another, but because they truly cared. And I think that's important. You can go to a lot of different places, Sean, and people will go and punch the clock, but they don't give a shit. What's the gas level? The thing you knew when you walked through our doors is that the gas level, the give a shit level, was super high. And it was super high for everybody who was involved there. And they wanted to put on the very best show. They wanted to compete against one another. I love that about that place. Pretty cool.
Bill said, Sean and Terry, I'm glad my current job has allowed me to cross paths regularly with you guys. You guys have accomplished so much in the media, are just great, down-to-earth people. That's very kind. I'd include my pal, Matt Shepard, in there. Matt, I want to piggyback on what you said, especially, I think, the last year. Because here, listen, I'm going to let everybody in a little secret. This is the dirty little secret. We weren't like the good ship Lollipop the last year. And there were a lot of people that were agitated around that building. A lot of people. And when I say a lot of people, you can pretty much check the box with everybody. And I think part of the agitation was how you responded to adversity. And Shep, you just talked about it. There's two things that you can do. You can put your head down and go like this, or put your arms up and go like that, like I'm done. Or you can put your head down and you can work your ass off. And that, I'll never forget how each people responded to that. And I think that's what made Rona's job so difficult that last year, was figuring out who was doing it and who wasn't, and quite frankly, who was an absolute cancer. And unfortunately, that seeped into the building something fierce, and and it continued on for some, and that's the way it is. But it was boy, that last year was frustrating. If I ever get a chance, if we can get back with Terry Shep, I don't know if you remember this. Terry did an article in the Detroit News maybe a day or two after we pulled the plug on Inauguration Day. And I remember so many people got offended at it, because I think Terry basically said, hey, look, we won at 97-1. And it was funny because so many people got agitated at it. And I said, well, what are you agitated about? Like, this is what we talk about, factual things. You talk about covering a game. That's what happened. That station went like this. Our station went like that. Their company paid money. Our company backed off. Like, what's there to be agitated about? Because that was a factual statement. And I thought it was interesting that so many people got offended at that. Shep, it didn't, never really.
Well, maybe it's, I don't remember that. I don't know who got offended. I'm sure you can let me know. It's probably different personalities, but I'm guessing a lot of that has to do with pride and feeling somewhat betrayed. You were one of us, and now look at what you're saying about us. Is that necessary? Like you said, it's factual. I don't think there was anybody personally called out in something like that. And quite honestly, he said a lot of things that you and I and other people felt. It was more of a jab at management that, sure, one station won, the other station lost, and here's why. And I don't think it had to do with the talent.
No, not at all. Very frustrating, no doubt about that. Those last few days. Hey, were you at the? We had that impromptu going away party the night that. Were you there?
I don't recall that. No.
Okay.
No.
Can I? You see? You know what? Can I give you another little inside story? Here's another thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know anything about it. Did you? I didn't know anything about it. It was kind of funny that night.
Yeah, I don't recall, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has taken place since. I don't recall that.
Doug Todd called me. They were, I think they were at some place at 12 and Orchard, and he goes, "Where are you?" And I go, "Well, what are you talking about?" And he goes, "At the party." I go, "What party?" He was like, "Oh yeah, everybody met up at 12 and Orchard to, kind of bid DFN adieu and everything." And I was like, well, would have been nice if somebody let me know. But I mean, that was, unfortunately, there was just way too much of that going on down the stretch, And
yeah, what was that place? Not the Wooden Nickel. What's the name of that place? I think I know what you're talking about, and I remember being there. I didn't recall that it was a DFN going away party. But I was at an event there, for DFN. I just don't remember it being called or tabbed.
Yeah, there was it was kind of funny. You know how I found out? I was sitting at home and I saw something on Fox 2. I was working for Fox 2 at the time, and I saw something on Fox 2 about, and there's Stoney and Wojo, and they're having this, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I kind of felt like it wasn't about me or us, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Look, Sean, you were as close to Tom Kowalski as anybody, and they have an ode to Tom Kowalski every year for a charity that he helped set up. And, you should have been at the forefront and one of the first people in that building doing things as an ode to one of your best buddies, and you're not. So that's a little odd too, don't you think? That never sat well with me, and I can't figure that one out either.
Yeah, a lot of that going around. Hey, let me tell you very quickly about the Wealth Advantage Group before we get out of here. Listen, we're going to try to catch up with Terry again. I don't Wi-Fi issue, whatever the case may be. But if you are ready to take charge of your financial future, look no further than the Wealth Advantage Group, located in historic downtown Northville and owned by two brothers with over 20 years of industry experience. They understand that your financial goals are as unique as you are. That's why they offer personalized expert guidance to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning. Now, whether you're saving for retirement, getting ready to sell your company, already in retirement, doesn't matter. They can help guide you through every step of your financial journey. They work with clients throughout all stages of life and have clients in over 20 different states. The investment world, it is a complex one. So if you're ready to start taking your finances more seriously, it might be time to work with an expert. Reach out to the Wealth Advantage Group at 248-773-8574 or view their website at www.thewealthadv.com. Two great guys. Really appreciate Mike and Jeff. Shep, so help me remember. I was doing what we affectionately, not so affectionately, referred to as AK4, anything to kill 4 hours. And I will never forget when like you said to me, oh, you never heard that? Do you remember after they let Jamie and Brady go, they decided to give me a 4-hour show, and I just nicknamed it AK4.
Well, they brought Jamie, Brady, and me all in at the same time.
Yes,
they fired all of us. We were brought in there by the human resources person, who had the personality of a nail in the wall, and she said she just gives us packages and says, "Here we go," and the three of us were looking at each other like, "Wait a minute, we've got a good show here. What the hell's going on?" So they got rid of all three of us at the same time. So I don't remember the AK4, but that's really funny. That's how you tabbed it, because I get it too. I think when 4 hours is way too long for one host, personally.
When you came back, you were, if I'm not mistaken, you correct me if I'm wrong, you came back a few months later and you ended up doing I think, was it the 7 to 9 portion of it? For you to take a couple hours away from me was like the greatest gift in the history of mankind, because I don't care what anybody says. There is such a big difference when you're by yourself between doing a 3-hour show and a 4-hour show. You can't even put a price tag on it. There's no comparison.
It's massive. And especially when you stay by yourself, when you've got somebody to bounce things off of, somebody that'll say something that'll kind of spur you on and kind of trigger something in you, that's ideal. But when you're doing it by yourself and you're lugging 4 hours, that is really challenging.
It was, Shep, it was amazing to me because you talked about some of the fine producers, and I worked with both of them. Marty Martin, shout out to Marty. Doug Todd, shout out to Doug Todd. Working with Spicoli that last year, who can forget Spicoli? I kid you not, and I told him this on the phone when I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. It saved my brain, because he was so creative. Being a young guy, he came up with so many bits, and he did so many. There were things that we had to do that last year just to try to make a show. I mean, really, that's what it was. And so when you came back, and if I'm not mistaken, they had you do, I think, 7 to 9, and I went back to 9 to noon. That was, it was Christmas Day, Shep. Just that 1 hour, and it wasn't about sleep. It was about it was about just doing one less hour. Chris said something nice. Shep, I think you're at your best with a co-host. Shep, how would you do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think most people are stronger when they have a co-host. It depends on the co-host, because as Terry just informed us, it was great with him, with Art and Mike, but not so great with Eric. And you worked with Eric, did you not?
Yeah,
on more than one
I
occasion.
had the same kind of experience. Nothing against Eric. I wish him all the best to this day. We didn't fit. Period. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I couldn't believe that I made it a year. Honestly, I can't believe I did it. I did a show with Eric for a year. We were the third shift. What was it? 7 to 10, I think, starting in 99. I honestly, Shep, I can't believe I made it a year. But that is one of the things that it was when that ended. That was, I mean, you know the story. I have no problem saying. I mean, the one thing that I said when I do this is I was going to shoot straight. I told Eric first, and then I went to Greg and I said, I can't do this anymore. And, you know, if that means I want to stay working here, but we just didn't fit. And that it's not the first time, nor will it probably be the last time, but we didn't fit, you know?
Well, if you recognize it, then your audience usually recognizes it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think,
I mean, that is not necessarily the case all the time. There have been plenty of quote unquote teammates in radio or TV where you would never guess that they don't get along until something happens. But in radio, when you are constantly talking with one another on the same shift every single time, and you're going in different directions, people recognize it pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think they can hear it. There's no doubt about it. Shep, anything else before we get out of here on a Friday
it's just too bad
morning?
we didn't get a chance to connect with Terry longer. I hope we get an opportunity to visit with him again, because he's got some really good stories. And yeah, as we continue to do this once a week, Rona would be a very good resource for us to try and bring on, even if people don't know her as much. You know, everybody knew the personalities. So they knew you, they knew Jamie, they knew Greg, they knew obviously the afternoon show, they knew Mega, all that stuff. But some of the people behind the scenes, and Rona being one of them, really can give people insight that, you know, even we sometimes don't always remember and bring up. So we'll be trying to track her down and try to do what we can to get her aboard as well. And, you know, there are some others too. You and I have both reached out to Greg Brady without much success. Nick just sent us a text in the comment chain and said, Damon Perry, we could try that too. We're going to keep pushing on it and see what we can do. But we want to have Terry back on for more of his stories.
Definitely. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll do a half and half, you know, like one of those Arnold Palmers. We'll do half at Terry and we'll catch up with some of the producers. I'd love to get a few minutes from each of the producers to give us their perspective sitting behind the board. And Rona, if you see this, Rona, I'll be reaching out. I'd love to chat with you too, because I meant what I said, Shep. I think over the years, and privately, you and I have talked about this, there has been a lot of revisionist bullshit.
Yeah.
Period. There has.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we wanted to do it. We had a front row seat. We know who did well. We know who didn't do well. We knew who worked hard. We know who didn't work hard. And we knew who threw everybody under the bus as well. So that was something that we wanted to talk about and try to be as straightforward as we could. And that's always bothered me, the narrative that Rona played the role of narrow, because I thought Rona was a great boss. I have no problem saying that. I thought Rona was a great boss.
Yeah, I just look, Sean. I do not have her contact any longer. So if you got it, let's try to get that going, and you know, hopefully people can recognize what her contributions were to the great success of that radio station for sure.
No doubt. Hey, bud, have a great weekend. Well, I'll as soon as this ends, I'll try to reconnect with Terry and see if we can figure something out.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, buddy. You too.
Have a great weekend. For Matt Shepard, thank you, Todd, and thank you for watching us. For Matt Shepard, I'm Sean Baligian. Until next time, we'll see you. Shep and Sean.
Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian. Produced by Todd Losey and Blake Matcherzak. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Still Alive by Anti-Ghost. Engineering, mix mixing and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.